Hey, it's the Empire, Jew Boxing Empire, Backstone Boxing. Now, man, Canelo Alvarez has been on a tear in boxing, man. Became undisputed in 11 months, man. Was stopping undefeated fighter back to back to back, man, and became the first 168 undisputed champion in boxing history, right? Not only that, he was the first undisputed Mexican champion of all time with all four titles. All that being said, man, my boy Canelo Alvarez, he's going to come back and he's going to fight, but he says he needs to take a break first. He needs to wait a couple months and fight on another time. When is that time? Well, Cinco de Mayo, May 5th, man, big Mexican holiday. It's a celebration of Mexico's, one of Mexico's biggest holidays of the year, and that's the time where Mexicans like to do things Mexicans like to do. And what are those big things they like to do? Watch boxing, baby. Watch boxing. That all being said, man, there's talks of Canelo Alvarez fighting Andre Ward, Dave Benavidez, or Jermall Charlo. Now, Floyd Mayweather, being the man he is, took over that month for decades, and he named himself Mayweather because of it. Wild stuff, man. The guy Floyd Mayweather, what a savage. What a savage. That all being said, man, Canelo Alvarez is trying to reclaim the holiday and fight on that holiday. Now, fighting a Dave Benavidez is a good fight. That's a fight people are clamoring for. But honestly, the biggest fight for Canelo Alvarez is most likely a Jermall Charlo or Andre Ward. It's whatever your cup of tea is. Andre Ward, a lot of people want to see Canelo Alvarez versus Andre Ward, but is Andre Ward too rusty? Is he too old? Andre Ward has had one of the more successful careers in his heyday. He beat all top guys tournament style, Mortal Kombat style. So in a Super 6 tournament, he beat Carl Froch, he beat Saka Bika. I mean, I can go on and on about all the guys he beat, but look it up yourself. The guy has a phenomenal deep resume, one of the best resume you can really name, especially around the 168 175 division, because Andre Ward was fighting guys who were basically the man at 175 when he beat Chad Dawson. But that win between Andre Ward and Carl Froch was definitely a big one. Sergey Kovalev was a big one. He came back and beat Kovalev. There's just a lot of, I can keep going on and on about Andre Ward's pedigree. The guy is a phenomenal fighter, and he's such a big deal that not only is he a great IQ for the sport of boxing as far as in the ring, but outside the ring as well, as he's a ESPN commentator along with Tim Desert Storm Bradley. So that all being said, man, Canelo Alvarez, he's fighting the intellectuals and the doers in the sport of boxing. A lot of people want to hear boxers that box talk boxing, and not some old guy who never boxed a day in his life. While he could be smart in the sport of boxing, people tend to lean toward people who actually been in the ring. It has a lot more heft, a lot more heft. So we're gonna see how this whole thing plays out with Canelo Alvarez and Andre Ward. Canelo Alvarez, he wasn't too fond of Andre Ward talking cash money and saying that Caleb Plant can beat him. He wasn't really happy about that at all. He said that you can get this work too. So Canelo Alvarez, man, that fight seems like it could be made. Andre Ward seems like he doesn't really like Canelo Alvarez too much. So it's wild stuff, because after Andre Ward beat Kovalev, he had 3 of the 4 titles, and all he had to do was fight Adonis Stevenson. That's all he had to do, and he could have became undisputed at 175, but he decided to retire. So that was a big mistake from Andre Ward, one title away from being undisputed, and he just said, nah, I'm gonna call it quits. Now there has been some reports saying things like Andre Ward had knee problems or something like that. I believe he sued his insurance company because they're supposed to give him a payout, because at the elite level, these fighters get their body insured, right? You're like, if you're a boxer, you get your hands insured or things like that. So when you damage it, you can get a payout of it. So elite level athletes usually do that. If you're smart, at least you'd be smart to do that. If I was boxing, I'll get my hands insured and my knees insured. Because especially if you're like someone like Deontay Wilder, I'm surprised he does not get his hands insured, because he can just retire and get a big check, because his hands broke his last time he fought. So, you know, especially if you're gonna fight in MX gloves, you know, wild stuff, man. But anyway, man, that all being said, Jermall Charlo is a big dog as well. People want to see him versus Canelo Alvarez because, well, he's been chasing Canelo Alvarez for the better part of since 154 when he was undefeated WBC champion over there as well. You know, there's no doubt in my mind that Jermall Charlo would have became undisputed if his brother wasn't in the same division as him. If Jermall and Jermall fought, in my opinion, Jermall is the better fighter. He's better than Jermall Charlo. Jermall Charlo is good, but Jermall is better. I actually, wildly enough, I actually think that earlier in Jermall Charlo's career, when he had a different trainer, when he was training with the same trainer that Jermall's training with now, he was actually a better boxer, and he has regressed as a fighter, and now he thinks he's a power puncher. So that being said, man, we're gonna see how this whole thing plays out with Canelo Alvarez. I think that Canelo Alvarez definitely, it's you know, the list of fighters that are really competitive for Canelo Alvarez. I can think of three guys, man. I think of Andre Ward, Jermall Charlo, and then maybe like a Demetrius Andrade. Dave Benavidez is good, but you know, he needs an incentive. Canelo Alvarez is going to need an incentive outside of, you know, fighting you because you're a quote unquote good fighter. You're going to need to bring something to the table. Jermall Charlo has a 160 middleweight title. You know, Demetrius Andrade has a WBO middleweight title. Dave Benavidez lost his title, and right now he's just a contender at this point, unfortunately for him, you know. So that being said, we're gonna see how this whole thing plays out with Canelo Alvarez. You know, we don't want to see him versus quote unquote easy fights. We want to see him versus big dogs, you know. So yeah, Canelo Alvarez is still young. We're gonna see how this whole thing plays out. Let me know who you guys want to see him fight. I think that the biggest fight for him will probably be Andre Ward, honestly. I think Andre Ward would be the biggest fight for him. But me personally, I want to see him versus a young fighter like himself and Jermall Charlo. That's a better fight for me, in my opinion. I want to see him fight someone closer to his age. You know, the biggest fights, the most competitive fights in the boxer's career, for the most part, are usually the younger guys around their age, you know. Anyway, let me know how you guys feel about it, though. Who do you guys want Canelo to fight next? Cinco de Mayo, you know, usually a big holiday for Mexicans, and like I said earlier, Floyd was dominating that holiday for a while now, fighting Mexicans every holiday. You know, is Canelo Alvarez going to do the same thing? Is he going to give black people the opportunity to do the same thing like Floyd Mayweather did? Is he going to just fight, you know, Mexicans on a holiday just like Floyd did, or is Canelo Alvarez going to do reverse and fight only black people in Mexico, Cinco de Mayo, the top black fighter? That would be a cool trend, man. I would love to see it. We're going to see what Canelo does. This statement, now that Canelo Alvarez, I think he's the best fighter right now, pound for pound. You know, now that Canelo Alvarez is that guy now, is he going to fight the top black fighters on Cinco de Mayo? This is what he should do. That should be his new thing, you know. Floyd did it forever. He fought the top black Mexican fighters in his heyday on Cinco de Mayo. Canelo should fight the top black fighters on Cinco de Mayo. Great stuff for boxing, man. Great stuff for boxing. Let me know how you guys feel about it, though. Like, comment, subscribe. It's the Empire. GeoBoxing Empire. Peace. GeoBoxing Empire.